NABJ, they made a calculated decision, Mark, decades ago, to be a Democrat organization, as in Democratic Party aligned, versus being a professional organization. And so when a Republican member of Congress or White House gets a call and they see that, no, well, it's true. I'm telling you what I know from personal experience.
I would think the majority of NABJ are Democrats, but we don't operate as a political organization.
They do. Mark, I cannot tell you the number. What I did a couple of months ago, I went through the agenda for several major Black organizations: National Association of Black Accountants, Black Lawyers, Black Journalists, Black social workers. And here's a couple of observations from that research. And I pulled up the program book, so I'm not making this stuff up. Number one, all these Black groups seem to recirculate the same speaker: Ben Crump, Al Sharpton. They just go, Mark Mariel, they just go around the chicken circuit to all these Black organizations. That's number one. Number two, why is it that you rarely, if ever, Mark, with all these Black supposedly professional organizations, you never see any Republican/conservative viewpoints represented? They always are from the liberal side of the equation.
I see at NABJ conservatives there. I've seen Paris Denard there. I've seen my man.
Not on a panel, not as a keynote speaker, as an attendee. Yes,
but I think part of that comes down to what the audience wants. Again, I'm not denying that NABJ has a disproportionate number of Democrats. NABJ might be 90% Democrat. What I'm saying is that doesn't make it a Democratic organization any more than if you walk into a Black church, everybody's Democrat. Don't mean that the church is
Mark, when in 2016, after Trump won in November, so in December, NABJ did a post-election analysis panel of members of NABJ to talk about what happened with the election with Trump and Clinton. They had not one Republican/conservative operative. I had to call them out, chew them out, and they finally put me on the panel. But if they are supposed to be a professional organization versus a Democrat organization, I never should have had to do that. But their whole leadership skews liberal.
I think the leadership does. Again, I think what you're talking about is a reflection of just the demographics of the organization, but I don't think that's part of the mission. But I don't want to quibble over that because I don't necessarily have a strong disagreement with you about that. But the question is, if the organization is so damn Democrat and it's all Black, and you Donald Trump, and you're trying to convince people that your political line, your political agenda is the right one, why do you talk to him like this? Couldn't he? I mean, even like you said, even if I agree with you that he's a equal opportunity jerk, why be a jerk to the people you want to vote?
Well, that's an easy question. But again, everything I'm about to say, Mark, is predicated on my premise that they made a decision to be a Democrat organization.
Okay.
They would, the three journalists on the stage were supposed to ask questions representative of the rank and file in the Black community, questions that were on their mind from their talks, with people around the country, since most of these journalists move around quite a bit. Let me tell you something, Mark. I guarantee you, I would challenge you on this personally. You meet with brothers and sisters, whether it's dinner, drinks, or whatever. How many times have you had a whole conversation over dinner with some brothers and sisters about the way Trump talks to supposedly Black journalists, especially Black women? Don't you? I would imagine you spend more of your time talking about the impact of illegal immigration on Blacks, the lack of Blacks in the employment market because of cheap labor, the crime rate, the inflation. I would imagine that would probably be more of a regular conversation with you and these brothers and sisters you talk with versus opening up talking about these Black women who are liberal as heck, who do not represent the mainstream of the Black community.
Well, there's a couple things there. Okay. First thing, all those conversations, all those points did come up in the interview. Immigration, jobs,
from Harris Faulkner,
qualified immunity, DEI. They didn't all come from Harris Faulkner. And that's the other thing. These weren't three liberal women, as you just pointed out. Harris Faulkner is not a liberal. Harris Faulkner is as conservative as they come. So again, you say NABJ is all Democrat, but they had a Fox News host in the middle. And that's the one he liked. Also, again, starting the conversation off with a question that represents the elephant in the room. I'll give you another example. You said you should start the interview off by saying, how do you feel? When I'm at dinner with black people, they don't ask how Donald Trump feels. When I'm at dinner with black people, they don't ask.
No, but when you put on your reporter's hat or interviewer hat, that to me is just a logical question to start off. How are you feeling after what happened to you?
I got you. What I'm saying is, so is for many journalists, myself included, dealing with the elephant in the room. If you and I got into an ugly, nasty Twitter battle, we was cussing each other out, talking about each other's mamas, blah, blah, blah. And then we did a live event together. Before we talk about anything else, we're like, all right, man, let's talk about the fact that we had this nasty thing and we worked through it. Let's talk about it first, right? You get the elephant out in the room, out the way, and then you go to other stuff.
But Mark, if you knew I was in a car accident a week prior to our doing this event, the first question, hey, how you feeling? You okay?
If I like you, if I care about you, and also if I believe that you were really in a car accident. Donald Trump.
No.
Listen to me. I'm not saying there wasn't a shooter, and I'm not saying there weren't shots, but Donald Trump wanted y'all to believe that he took a bullet like Tupac and kept on trucking. He probably got grazed by some shrapnel. He got a flesh wound. His own son said that on TV, right? He said, yeah, he didn't need stitches. It was just a quick flesh wound. All that blood, all that stuff looked like it's WWE, man. He was like he was wrestling Kamala the Ugandan headhunter or something. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is a showman. And he went up there and put on a show, a good show. But what he also did was steamroll at least 2 or maybe 3 black women up there. And you say those black women don't represent the interests or the opinions or the perspectives of the black community. I strongly disagree.
Okay, Mark, these women, and see, again, I don't have a problem with you if you tell me, like, I know how you feel about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. You've been consistent with that. So I may disagree with your position, but I got to tip my hat to you, Mark, because at least you have been consistent on your position on that issue. But these journalists that we're talking about, they won't even admit that they're liberal. Come on, don't piss on me and tell me it's raining.
Why do you say they won't admit that they're liberal? Why do you say that? Because
if you challenge them, as I have done on interviews incessantly, I'm a journalist. I don't have an opinion. You're a bull crap. Your opinion is leaked out every time you open your mouth. So stop.
Yeah, but see, on the one hand, you want them to have journalistic objectivity, and you want them to put on the hat that's so objective that you want them to ask somebody who hates them how they doing after they got allegedly shot. But on the other hand, you want them to confess their ideological position, which is the exact opposite of what we're trained to do as journalists.
Well, listen, I've written columns, Mark, over the years that all these supposedly mainstream journalists, not only black, but white folks as well, CNN, MSNBC, they are all in violation of the Society of Professional Journalism, SPJ.org, of their 10 tenets of journalism. And if you go to spj.org and pull up what those tenets are, most journalists you and I watch on a regular basis are in violation of every one of them.
And that's why it's important. And this is night school, so it's always important for us to educate the audience too. We have to make distinctions between anchors and hosts, between contributors and analysts. There are people,
but they don't make that distinction.
No. I'm not saying that to challenge you. I'm saying that to say that that's part of the problem. So part of what we have to provide is media literacy, so that when a person turns, because this is what Fox News mastered, right? People were used to seeing a white man at an anchor desk with a suit on, deliver the news, whether it was Cronkite, whether it was, whoever, right? And then suddenly at Fox at 8:00, then white men delivering the news weren't just reading the prompter. Now, it was never neutral and objective. There always is a political ideology at play on every network. I don't care who you are. But those white men at 8:00 weren't even pretending to be objective. Bill O'Reilly wasn't pretending to be objective. Sean Hannity wasn't pretending.
But he's not a journalist. He's an opinion guy.
So this is my point. You're making the point I make. Although Bill O'Reilly would be very upset with you if you told him he wasn't a journalist. But I can tell you that for sure. In fact, he literally calls himself this. He says this humble journalist. He speaks about himself in the third person on his show when doing his commentaries. I worked at Fox for years and was a regular on the O'Reilly Factor as a contributor. But my point is, when you watch Shepard Smith at 7, or you watch Chris Wallace on Sunday, you're looking at an objective journalist. And then suddenly an opinion guy comes on, but the set looks the same. The presentation looks the same. The physical presence looks the same. And so people were starting to confuse straight news, as we call it, objective news, from opinion making. Similarly, people used to go online and get articles, and people started confusing articles and blogs because it was like, wait, is this somebody's article or is this just somebody's opinion about why we shouldn't do X, Y, and Z? I'm saying that just to say that this stuff gets conflated in our media world all the time. I don't need my news anchor to tell me what their political position is. The problem is it's hard in this media era to make any money or to get any attention being the straight news guy. Don Lemon was a straight news guy on CNN until he wasn't. And when he started, giving opinions on the weekend and telling black folk, pick up the trash on the street and stop having so many kids, suddenly shit started changing, right? And you become somebody different. Megyn Kelly was always going to give her opinion. She wasn't going to be straight news because that's the lane she took. Shepard Smith, and I knew Shep well, he did his best to stay objective, but he hated that shit at Fox News. I can tell you straight up. So all that to say, I'm not mad at these sisters for doing their job, which is to be objective and to ask questions. I didn't hear them ask one question that I thought was so ideologically loaded that it was unprofessional.
Well, no, Mark, if you look at the way the program opened yesterday, Rachel Scott, she went into this 2-3 minute tirade making statements wrapped up in a question. Your job as a reporter is to ask a question. Whenever you use the word I negate you as a reporter or interview at that point because I don't care what I think. I want to know about the question.
She said what the people at NABJ were concerned about, and she named 6 or 7 examples of why people think Donald Trump is an enemy to black people, more or less. I'm paraphrasing here. If she doesn't give those examples, he'll be like, what are you talking about? I've never done anything in my life. So he has to be confronted with the evidence. That's what a good journalist does. I do that every week. You do that every week.
Well, but see, again, it's not your job as an interviewer, especially you're different because you have your own shows and things like that, where Rachel reports to a mainstream broadcast network, ABC News. And what she should have done is simply said, Mr. President, your appearance here is very controversial. I've been asked to ask you, why do you denigrate black reporters? Boom, boom, boom. That's legit. But all the other stuff, the introductory statements she was making, those were her personal opinions. And that's what I have a problem with.
You think it's a personal opinion that he called people stupid? You think it's a personal opinion that he said that's a dumb question? You think it's a personal
But opinion? He does that to black and white, male and female reporters.
But that's not a personal opinion. He's done these things.
But she's couched it strictly in racial terms. She didn't say anything about what he did to Caitlin Collins from CNN.
Saying that there are good people on both sides of Charlottesville is both sides.
But Trump never said that.
Having dinner with a white supremacist is a racial thing.
Well, I'm not going to justify that. That was crazy. That was totally insane.
So having a dinner with a white supremacist, I think it's reasonable to challenge him on that. In a black journalist convention.
Wait, no, Mark, I don't think we're disagreeing. I don't have a problem with the question, but ask the question without wrapping around your editorial comments in the midst of the question.
We just have to agree to disagree on that because that didn't feel editorial to me. That was the question. If you sitting with white supremacists and you disrespecting journalists and you're calling countries in Africa shithole countries, etc., etc.
But there's no proof of that. That no one's provided me any evidence that happened.
There doesn't seem to be any disagreement from inside his circles. And I haven't heard him deny it.
Well,